Hello, everyone. Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. I hope that you're all having a good day. I'm sorry that, oh, hi, everyone. Hello. I hope you're all having a good day. My name's Maddie, and today we're going to be doing ice painting. I'm sorry that I'm a few minutes late. I was having some technical difficulties. Now my computer is working and I am ready to get started on this activity with you all. So I'm going to tell you all um, sorry, one second. I think I might still be having a few technical difficulties here. I just want to make sure you are all seeing me right. Okay, I think this should be working now. So the first material that you'll need is watercolor paint, and you can get this at the store. Just make sure that it's watercolor so it'll look like this. It's not the kind in the tube. Actually, sometimes watercolors are in the tube, but more likely they'll look like this. You will also need some paintbrushes, or just one paintbrush. These ones. You will need a cup of water. And then the most important and most fun part of this is that you will need a ice canvas. So the way that you're going to create that is using a container. So I used a Tupperware container, and you'll fill it with water and put it either in your freezer overnight, or if it's a snowy and icy day outside, you can put it in outside in the snow and see if it freezes overnight. And that's a fun way to do this in the winter time. So, like I said, I have this container that I've already frozen last night. So it is solid, and I put it onto a workspace that has a paper towel down on it so that in case anything spills, it won't get too messy. So, like I was mentioning before, when water gets really, really cold, it turns into a solid, and that's what we call ice. So if you've ever had ice in a drink, or if you've ever had, like I said, snow outside, that's water that's turned into a solid. And today we're going to be using it as our canvas to paint on. So watercolor paints work by using water to get them wet, and since when ice melts a little bit, it's water, it's a really fun way to use this big block of ice as a canvas. So that's what we're going to do today. Let me move this down so you can see my canvas. So the first thing that I'm going to do, let me bring this over here, is get one of my paintbrushes wet with water, just because so far my ice is still pretty solid. And also, as a little bit of a warning, I want to remind you all that ice can be really, really cold. And sometimes if you touch your fingers directly onto the ice, they can get stuck because it's so cold. So when you're working with your canvas, make sure you're holding the outsides of your container, not the ice itself. All right, let's get started. So, like I said, the first thing we're going to do is get one of our paintbrushes a little bit wet in the water, and we're going to choose a color from our watercolors. I'm going to choose purple, and as you can see now my paintbrush has some color on it because the watercolor paint has been activated by the water. So I have some of that on my brush, and now I'm going to paint it directly onto the ice. And like I said, my ice is still pretty solid from the freezer, so I can add some more water on top too to try and make the ice and the colors spread around. And you can paint this however you want. Like, we are creating our own art pieces, so you can make it look however you want. You could create a scene on here. You could make it all one color, all your favorite color, whatever you want. So I'm just adding some more water on here again because my ice is pretty solid still. So right now I'm just adding purple, but you can add whatever color you want. And I think that this is a really cool sensory activity. So I really like to see how it's spreading, how it feels to paint ice instead of paper, because that's not, usually you paint on paper or a canvas, and this feels very different. It feels to me kind of like if you've ever been ice skating, it feels like that, but your hand is doing it instead of your feet. And I like to see, like I said before, I like to see how it spreads and how it feels different than what I'm used to painting on. So what I think I'm going to do is kind of pick a few colors. I'm gonna get this all wet because, like I said, my ice hasn't started melting yet. So if you can see, it's a little bit harder to paint onto when it's fully frozen. And that's another thing that's interesting to feel. So, what it's going to feel like now might be different in a couple of minutes because ice will melt the longer that it's not in that really cold space. So, like I said, if you're not painting it in your freezer or outside, this ice is going to slowly melt. And that's another reason why I didn't fill up the water all the way to the top of my container, because if it was all the way up here and started to melt, it might go over the side. So that's another helpful tip, is to only fill it up a little bit. All right, so we're just gonna keep on painting. I think I'm gonna even try pouring a tiny bit of water onto my canvas, over on this side too. And again, I have a paper towel under here, so if I spilled, that's okay, because it will get a little bit less messy. Okay, I think that this might make it even easier. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Now the colors are kind of blending together. I like seeing how the colors spread when I add the water on top. And like I said, this is a fun sensory activity. What I've even noticed is that sometimes ice makes a sound. So when it moves in the container, let's see if it'll do it. I found that when I first took it out, there we go, it was like a little bit crinkly of a sound. So we're using all of our senses to do this activity, which I think is really cool. So again, you can paint this however you want. If you wanted to create a scene on here, you can. You could even take, like once you created a scene, you could have toys, like plastic toys or figurines, ice skate on here. I think that would be really fun. You can do a bunch of things with this canvas. So I'm just adding some blue. I hope you guys can see. My desk right here is a little bit sunny, so I hope you can see what I'm painting. And I'm gonna add some green now too. Let's see. Add some green over here and see if it blends in. Sometimes you have to add a little bit of water, and sometimes you don't have to add very much at all if your ice has already melted a bit. Like I said, mine is still very, very frozen. So that's why I added some water on top to see if that would help us be able to paint on it. You see the green up here? I kind of wanted to make mine look like a bunch of rainbow of colors. So I have this, and it's fun to see what happens when you add water on top. So I noticed that my paint color spreads when I add water, and the colors kind of mix together on here. And another thing that I've noticed about using ice as your canvas is that your painting will change over time as it melts. So right now it looks like this, but as the ice starts to melt and go away, it might turn into something new. And I think that makes it really fun. You never know what you're gonna get. Adding some orange on this side. You can add any colors you want. And I noticed that on the sides of the Tupperware here, I've noticed that it melts there first. So I'm seeing some of the color go down the side of my ice, which is really cool. I hope that it's showing up on here. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Now you can see it. So some of my ice is starting to melt. I'm gonna add some red too. Interesting to see what colors you get when two colors come together. So I noticed that when I painted red next to this blue, I see some purple in between. The colors are mixing together. Yeah, there's some purple. Maybe I will mix that together with this purple too. So here's what mine looks like so far. It's still pretty frozen. If I take the paintbrush, you can hear. Feels pretty solid. So I'm gonna add a little bit of water on top again to see what that will do, since this is watercolor paint. Ooh, notice that helped mix my colors together. And again, I'm doing that over a paper towel so that it's nice and clean. Doesn't get my table all messy or full of water. Or if you're doing it outside in the snow, then it's okay if it gets a little bit more messy. I'm noticing that as my ice melts, it feels more smooth to paint onto the surface of the ice. So right now, this feels a lot more smooth on my brush than earlier. It felt more hard and almost like I was ice skating, like I said earlier. Where now, it feels a little bit easier to paint because there's some water on the surface. I hope you can see all the colors I'm using. So some of my orange melted away. I'm gonna add some more. Add some more orange. And like I said, sometimes the paints and your painting on this canvas changes as it melts. So I've noticed even just a little bit of melting has made my paint look a lot more vibrant. And I hope you can see on camera too. It's a lot easier to see now because there's more water to paint with. A fun way you could keep track of all the different ways your painting has looked is to take a picture. So you could take a picture on your phone or someone who's with you's phone, maybe an adult, and take a picture every couple of minutes and see how it changes. You can go look back once you're done and see all the different ways your painting has looked as the ice melts. Wow. It's fun to use your brush in different ways too. So far I've just been using it flat on the surface like this. But if I get some water and take a color, let's see, I'm gonna take red. And I go like this, you can see that the dot starts to spread out. So I just did just the corner of the brush and the dot starts to spread out as the ice melts. So again, you don't have to just use your brush just flat against. You can try lots of different ways. So I have a whole rainbow here. But you might have a whole scene that you've created. Maybe you painted a nice nature scene. or you painted your favorite character. You can do whatever you want here. So this is what mine's looking like so far. Another thing that I notice is when, as it starts to melt, there's more room on the sides here. So this filled the whole thing before, but now I have room on the sides and I can kind of wiggle it up and down as it melts on the sides and the bottom. Ooh, okay, here's a good example of the color going all the way down to the bottom now as it starts to melt. You see color starting to spread all around. So even though you're only painting on the top, the color is now spreading all around the canvas. And I think that's another cool thing about this type of painting is that usually when you paint on paper, there's only the top and the bottom to paint on. But this one, again, you see all of this different colors start to spread all around. This side has less than these sides, huh? It's interesting to see what's melting first. All right, let's keep painting. I think what I want to do is I'm gonna add, I like how this blue and green has combined together. Maybe I'll add some more blue and green. Ooh, see how that spreads so much easier now that it's melting. I love seeing what changes. So at first it was hard to paint on, and now it's very easy. My paint is spreading all over. So at the beginning, I had to get some water on my brush or even add it onto the canvas, but now I really don't have to at all except to take the color off of my paintbrush. And also, I've been using the same paintbrush for all of my colors, but if you wanted to use a new paintbrush for each color, that would be okay too. You can do whatever you want. Well, the red is a lot more vibrant now that I have some water to work with. And my orange as well. I think the orange and yellow was hard to see on camera before, but now you should be able to see it a lot better. See the ways that it combines with all the colors. Take some water and see if that helps it combine. Ooh, that created a really cool design, I think. So again, you do not have to copy the way that I've been painting. You can paint however you want. So I just thought it would be cool to have some kind of rainbow designs here. Again, it's starting to go onto the sides. You can even try and paint onto the side if you can fit your brush. Some more blue. I love seeing the ways that it combines with everything. Add some more purple. I like mixing it with the colors and see what happens. So again, wow, it creates really cool designs on the sides as well. And the more it melts, the more that it will just change and kind of flow with the melting water. And again, that's happening because our ice that was hard water, because it was really, really cold, got nice and hard in the freezer, became a solid, or outside, if you're doing it that way, or, and now that it's out just in the regular temperature in your house or wherever you're doing this activity, the ice starts to melt back into water because it's not so cold anymore. So that's why this is happening. So again, as it starts to melt, it takes that color with it down the sides. I think that looks so cool. And the more you paint, the more it might turn fully into water, and then it might just all mix into one color. So again, if you want to be able to capture what you painted, a picture is a great way, because in a couple of minutes, or when you're all done, it might be fully melted and you can't really hang on to this. However, if you want to, I thought it might be fun to take a piece of paper and try and make a print onto it to try and capture it that way as well. So I'm not going to be taking a picture of mine. I'm going to use this paper and I'm going to place it down onto what I painted and press it down. Let's see if I lift it up. Oh, kind of. It made a cool design on here. So that's another way you could use this as well. So if you wanted to use a paper and press down onto your ice canvas, it takes some of the color back up onto the paper. You can leave it on the side here on the paper towel to dry. And as you can see, it took some of the paint off of the ice, and then you can just restart. You can keep adding more onto it and seeing where it takes you. I think it's very cool to have a canvas that's just changing all the time. It makes it really fun, and I think that it helps me feel a little bit more creative. I really hope that you enjoyed this activity with me today. I hope that you all have a good time using ice as your canvas and ice painting, either with me today or in the future when you watch this video. Thank you all so much for joining, and I'll see you next time with Get Your Play Online. Bye, friends.